You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, enough is enough. I think this has gone on too long, and something needs to be done. And I'm sick of seeing this issue. So I take care of patients through a telemedicine company, and some of them are bleeding profusely. Some of them possibly sustained a tendon rupture after they lacerated themselves. Some of them are clearly having some sort of perforation or a severe appendicitis, or they're having a cardiac issue. And I tell them to go to the ER. Or I tell them to go to an urgent care, or I tell them to go and see a provider. And every single answer is, it's too expensive. My deductible is too high. My out-of-pocket is too high. And I have been hearing this now for the past 16 years. What has changed? Right? Well, I mean, to the point that somebody won't even get sewn up. I used to work in urgent cares and ERs. I understand it was pricey, but not like it is now. In fact, when I tell a patient you need to see a medical doctor about this, you need to get your thyroid checked. They go, it's too expensive to go and see a doctor. That's why I'm using telemedicine. And when are we going to fix this? Now, the elephant in the room is Obamacare. And I understand the pre-existing condition clause was good. It's about time that insurance covers if you have a pre-existing condition. And I get, yes, it's time that physicals needed to be covered. But we are left with such a disaster where people may have a card in their wallet. Everybody says, oh, yeah, it expanded healthcare. Expanded healthcare, go into details, because I'm seeing people not go and get their physical. I'm seeing people not get their pap smear. I'm seeing people not go in to get birth control or to get the STD screening. Why? Because it's too expensive. Their deductible is too high. And these are people who need help. They need, and so one person called, this was her third call in 3 days to telemedicine. And she got me for 2 of the calls. And I'm like, remember I told you need to go in. You need to get seen in person. She's like, no, it's going to cost $300. Remember, it used to only cost $50 or $75 to go to urgent care? Just, to walk in the door? I understand you could get back billed for something else, but they won't even see you unless you pay money up front. And we talked about why you're being required now to dole out the cash before you even get taken back, because now that medical debt may not count, they don't think anybody's going to pay. So they're trying to collect up front. And so we have a huge epidemic of people not having the money to go in and see a medical provider. Don't be telling me Obamacare expanded medical access. Yes, it might have expanded Medicaid, which was supposed to cover the horrific recession that we had that went on until 2015, 2016. But did it sunset? Are people on Medicaid getting care same day, same week? I'm being told it's taking months. And so we're really struggling. And we're struggling a lot health-wise. I don't know if RFK Jr. is going to fix this. I don't know if Trump could fix this. I don't know if Congress is going to fix this. But somebody has to fix the out-of-pocket costs and the deductibles. Now, the argument that insurance companies are given is, but we have to pay for pre-existing conditions. And we predicted this. In 2009, we predicted the prices are going to go up. I'm glad pre-existing conditions are covered, but insurance companies are just going to stick it to the consumer. But it is ridiculous now. And many of you, I know, are shaking your head going, yeah, I haven't seen a doctor in years. Why not? My deductible's too high. A lot of people are buying insurance like Medishare or something that really, really limits, some of their monthly costs. But when they do go in and get seen, it's very expensive. So they just keep using telemedicine. And I understand Trump is going to expand telemedicine and telehealth, because I remember years ago in my practice, if people wanted to call me, I would call them and I would talk to them on the phone, but you didn't get paid. And at some point you have to work and pay the bills. So now you can get paid to talk to a patient online. But is that the same as biopsying their melanoma? Is that the same as doing their pelvic exam or checking their prostate? There was this one gentleman who was young having pain behind his testicles. So he's like, it's got to be chronic prostate issues. And I go, okay, was that confirmed? Did somebody examine your prostate or do a test? No, this is online. They're guessing. Okay, you could have prostate cancer. This could be affecting your bladder, your fertility, your what? Get seen. I can't afford it. The average person cannot afford going to the doctor. What's wrong? Also, look how expensive it is for doctors and hospitals and medical centers. Look how Denver Health had to ask for federal funding because a lot of their patients were migrants who didn't have money. So if they're seeing people for free, they need to get money from the people who they can get money from. And so, yeah, prices are going up. It's unsustainable. So we want to make America healthy again. We're not going to be able to do that if people won't go into the doctor. I've seen people try to glue their own lacerations. I'm like, why? And now it's infected. It's not healed. I've seen people burn themselves horribly, but they just threw some aloe on it and tried to take care of it at home. And now they have necrotic skin. I'm like, what? You need to go to the ER. I'm like, why didn't you go to the urgent care day one? It's too expensive. It would cost me $300 to $500 out of pocket. And mind you, urgent cares are expensive to run. The staff, the malpractice, the billing software, the rent, all the requirements by OSHA and CLIA, the radiology costs. So it's gotten ridiculous. And my problem is the Affordable Care Act is not getting addressed and reevaluated to keep the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff. But I think it's beyond help now. And so if you want to make America healthy again, we have got to get these deductibles down. We have got to get insurance tolerable, or we need to figure out where people could just go and pay cash and keep the insurance out of it. 1-877-Doc-Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hot Shot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So there's a lot of anxiety if you are a federal worker these days. And I feel you. I get it. Trump, and understandably so, is trying to cut the waste that is happening in the federal government. And I am not shocked, but shocked at the same time at the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse DOJ is finding. It is flippin' ridiculous. Some of the things that are going on, like paying contractors that haven't been working for years. Elon Musk made a really, really smart statement saying these jobs are paying $100,000 a year, yet these people are multimillionaires. How? Yeah, how are they getting their net worth? It's frightening. But on the other side, it is really, really frightening for many federal workers who voted for Trump and supported him to not know if they're going to be losing their job this week or next week. And he said cuts are coming. And when you have middle America who might not be doing fraud, waste, and abuse, not knowing if they're going to have a job tomorrow or not, it's not going well. And I understand what Trump has to do in terms of limiting waste, but you have a lot of anxiety now. And many individuals, I see their posts, they're like, look, they don't know if they're going to have a job tomorrow. And it's understandable that we might be overhired in some departments, especially the fact that people could work from home and not come to the office and still get their 40-hour-a-week pay. So I was in full support of Trump saying, okay, come back to work. If you want your 40-hour-a-week pay, full salary, full benefits, come back to work. If not, you have a buyout. And you'll be paid until September 30th, but see ya. That made sense. Though a lot of people are struggling with are those people who said, no, we have been working on site. We want to work in our jobs. We want to be there. And even the email that offered the buyout said, look, we cannot guarantee that you're still going to have a job. So what do you do if you work for the government? You've been there a while. You love it. You want to continue to work for the government, but you don't know if you're going to get axed. It's not very easy to find a job these days. The federal government used to be the place you go to not get fired. If you were a civil servant, if you had a job if you worked at all as a civilian for the government, it was one of the safest jobs. Now it's not. And I see the job market. It's not easy to get a job these days out there. Unless, of course, you completely change what you're doing and you work, for the service industry or, they're always looking for waiters and waitresses, which is something I would do. If I ever lost my job, I would probably wait tables because I made some really good money doing that. Now, I was cuter and younger back then, but I think I could still hustle for tips. But it's frightening. If you are trained and you're a government employee, the problem is I'm looking at these message boards and I'm, talking to listeners and they're telling me, but am I at risk or am I not? Well, from what I understand, the memos and the emails that went out were those people, one, who worked from home are obviously on the chopping block. They want you on site. Number two is if you're probationary. Now, probationary is a little tricky because probation isn't, if you worked for the government for years, it's based on your position. So if you got hired or got elevated to a new position within a year or two, you could be on probation and you don't have the same protections getting fired like somebody not on probation. Now, you would think probation meant disciplinary. It should, but in the government, it also just means, well, you're on your 3-month probation, but in the government, it's a year. So you have a lot of individuals who got hired. They're doing a good job. But if the government says we just need to cut costs, machete-wise, and we just need to blanketly cut jobs, they could cut those individuals. On the other end, if you've had a job where it was pretty cush, you got to do telework for 5 years, and you don't really have to do much. You're doing maybe 4 hours of work in 8 hours. They may say, no, we want fresh blood. We want fresh, new, youthful, energetic, busy bee workers to take over your position. And there's a lot of uncertainty. And, so I don't know how that's going to work, because if they are losing, from what I understand, 75,000 people took that buyout. They took that buyout. But I also understand that in multiple departments, we're hearing thousands of people laid off. I saw an email to EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency workers. If you're not in a mission critical job, they don't need you. And there's a lot of jobs being held by federal workers that aren't really that necessary. And what government likes to do when they want to make their constituents dependent on them is hire them. You're going to do what the government says because they gave you a job. And so during the Democratic administrations, government increased. And so Trump and Elon Musk are looking at these jobs going, really? Do we really need to be studying this? Do we really need to be? But, I see it from the more granular level, where these are families that took this job, committed to the job, trained for the job. It's not easy to go off a job and lose a job. Now, most of these people could get unemployment. But if our current salary isn't paying the inflation and the high costs, how is the unemployment going to at 75%? So it's a frightening time. And many of you are asking your supervisors, going, what are we looking at here? And they just don't know. These cuts are happening, even the Department of Defense, EPA, IRS. Now, mind you, Biden hired 88,000 new IRS agents. So I am sure that some of them might be cut. But if you just recently got a job with the government, you could be on the chopping block. And so the question keeps coming up, should you take that deal? I don't think that deal now, I think we're past that deadline to take that deal. And again, I still wouldn't do that, because not everybody is getting fired. From what I believe is happening, reading the message boards and seeing some supervisors write on Reddit, is the supervisors are being asked, which individuals are not mission critical, which individuals are not coming to work and working remote, things like that, so that those people would be then more at risk. But if your employer's like, these are mission critical, these are jobs that we need to do, these are jobs that the government needs in terms of tax collection, in terms of the environment, in terms of national security, in terms of the border, those jobs might be safe, because it's going to be very, very difficult for Trump to rehire people back. I heard the National Park Service fired a lot of people, but they're going to do seasonal hiring in the summer. Now, I don't know if they're going to get the people back that they can't. But if somebody's desperate and says, look, I would rather get back in and get a job than be on unemployment. So, it's hard to train people. And when you have very talented individuals, I understand there's a lot of people that are just sitting there playing solitaire at their desk. But I think there's a lot of individuals who are well trained and are doing important jobs. I don't know how easy it is going to be for them to then find new recruits. So we'll see what happens. And being told I'm picking up on the same fear we saw during the Obama years, during the recession, where every week in the casino industry, there was going to be massive layoffs. And people were so freaked out, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get fired. And the funny thing is the people who weren't anxious were the ones who already got let go. Once that happened, they're like, you know what? I could go to sleep now. The worst happened. They got unemployment. It wasn't the best, but they knew they didn't have that fear. But what's happening right now is if you're a federal worker, you're fearing. And I see people, go, oh, well, who cares? They're federal workers. They're still human beings. And for some of them, it wasn't their fault that they answered a call to work, took a job. But if you are a federal worker that is, not doing a job that is needed and the taxpayers don't need that job being done, yeah, that job probably is not going to last much longer. And so I think what is hurting is any other industry, jobs come and go. But with the federal government, you think you're there for life. And that's not the situation. When there's budget cuts with corporate, you're being laid off, like with Boeing. But that's happening now with the federal government. 1-877-DOC-DALI. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. So Pope Francis had to be hospitalized this weekend. We are being told that he has a polymicrobial infection of his respiratory tract that is now going to require his hospital treatment to be changed. This is according to the Vatican. They said tests are indicating a complex clinical picture. Now, he is one of the oldest popes in the church's history, according to CNN. He is 88 years old, and apparently recent tests are implying that he's going to need additional treatment and maybe a change in course, requiring adequate hospitalization of this polymicrobial infection. Polymicrobial meaning multiple microbes. So rather than having a streptococcal pneumonia or a viral bronchitis, there might be multiple individuals. It might have started out as COVID or flu, and now there's a bacteria component to it. So poly, anything more than one. And so they say all the tests carried out to date are indicative of a complex clinical picture that will require adequate hospitalization. Now, a complex clinical picture means to me he might be suffering from a respiratory distress syndrome or respiratory complications from the bacteria. Could have also gone into sepsis. So I understand how they're being vague. You know, Godspeed, we're praying for the Pope. But this is obviously concerning news. So according to the U.S. National Institutes of Health, polymicrobial infections are acute and chronic diseases that can be caused by a combination. Viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites. Maybe he also picked up, you know how there's that drug-resistant candida, which is a form of yeast. There's a whole variety of things that could cause this. And so people are concerned, obviously, that, you know, he went into the hospital, but it wasn't something simple. And mind you, he's 88 years old. But, you know, he had apparently felt tired. And I don't know all his symptoms. But from what we understand, he was able to eat breakfast on his own Monday. He read some newspapers, according to the Vatican spokesperson. And he even tried to complete routine obligations while he was in the hospital. So on Friday and Saturday, the Pope spoke to Reverend Gabriele Romanelli and his assistant, Father Yusuf Assad, in Gaza City, northern Gaza. And they have been apparently in frequent communication since the October 7th massacre and attacks. And so I'm not sure what's going on with that and what sort of conversations they were having, but he was able to talk on the phone while he was in the hospital. So we hope he has a good recovery, recovers soon. But it just kind of reminds us of how, you know, nature and, you know, our bodies can succumb to some very, very serious issues, especially while we're still in cough, cold, flu season. We know Minnesota has, I think, had to declare a recent state of emergency because of multiple illnesses that, from what I understand, is affecting their agriculture. The state's Department of Agriculture issued an alert of 3 viral infections among animals in the state. Avian metapneumovirus. Remember we talked about human metapneumovirus that was going on in China, that we were picking up cases here? Well, apparently there's an avian metapneumovirus. It's a respiratory disease that's spreading among poultry. It has been triggering outbreaks since late last year. They say highly pathogenic, according to Daily Mail, avian flu, HPAI, and the H5N1 bird flu are also viral infections circulating. But HPAI is referring to several strains that could cause severe disease. H5N1 is one of the strains, so they have a more generalized term than they have a more specific. But apparently this is affecting Minnesota farmers, so now there is a state of emergency for farmers. This declaration allows them to get zero interest loans to who are forced to cull their flocks or lose cattle because of infections. California had to also declare an emergency over the bird flu outbreak. The outbreaks, as we know, are affecting our eggs, are affecting our poultry prices. I'm sure you've seen hot wings and chicken wings also go up in price. Eggs are starting to become harder to find. It's interesting because last year, or the year before, they were talking about how eggs are healthy now. Eat eggs for breakfast. Ditch the cereal, ditch the carbs, get some protein. And consumption of eggs went up, but because of the flu, avian flu, eggs went down. So you're going to have to find other means of protein. So we'll keep you posted on that. But, going back to what happened with the Pope and where we are respiratory-wise, a big issue I'm seeing with patients is they're waiting too long to get seen. We have trained ourselves since COVID to not go to the doctor. You have a cough, you have an illness, just deal with it. It'll go away on its own. And when you're younger, that might be the case, but not always. We still want to make sure, every time a parent calls and the child has a fever, I go, can a doctor look at them or a medical provider look at them just so we know what it is? Is it strep? Is it an ear infection? Is it UTI, meningitis, flu, COVID? I'd like to know what it is. And when we do know what it is, we could then focus treatment and be more precise. And this idea of don't go to the doctor, the urgent care doesn't want to see you, or I don't want to go to the doctor because I'm going to be exposed to other things. I get that excuse all the time. People are using telemedicine because they say they don't want to go in and get exposed to other things. And I get that. You could get exposed to things at the hospital and the waiting room. I understand that. But if you're getting worse, if you're having a pneumonia, there's only so much a doctor on a telephone can do. And you need the right treatment. I can't tell you how many times people called in and say, yeah, it must be flu because my COVID test was negative, and they were still sick after they took the flu medication. So we wasted the flu medication. We never confirmed it was flu, and now they have something else. Or they always had something else. And so when do you go in and get seen? Well, if it doesn't feel like a simple, small cold, if you feel like it's getting deeper, if you feel like you're struggling to breathe, stairs for me will tell me when I had COVID, I've never had an issue with stairs and feeling short of breath. But when I had COVID, I was like, whoa. And I remember my son telling me, I notice stairs are harder. And I'm like, that's probably COVID, or you could have pneumonia. Somebody needs to check your heart and lungs. My father died because he didn't want to get seen. He thought he had something a Z-Pack would take care of. And he ended up dropping dead of a heart attack. And I understand the powers that be would love to see less of a population. But I want all of you to live. I don't want anybody dying. And so if at all it's not getting better, if it's taking a turn, if it's feeling different from a typical cold, get seen. And this wasn't an issue because you would be going in for checkups. You would be seeing your medical provider, going in for checkups. They would check your heart and lungs. They would have sick days, or I had weekend hours. So if you did get sick, I could see you when you're sick. Make sure we know what this is. Make sure we documented it. You know, I really worry about the rise in throat cancer. Why would I be worried about throat cancer if people are starting to smoke less? Well, because if you would come in and see me for a sore throat, I would document it. If you came back a couple months later saying, yeah, I have a sore throat again, and I would swab you to see if you had strep. If you didn't have strep and you were getting multiple sore throats, you know, and I can't see deep enough, I'm using my tongue depressor, I'd get an ENT to look at you. But what's happening are people are using online telemedicine. Now, thank God telemedicine is there for people who don't have access to health care. But telemedicine companies, if you call the same one, will alert the doctor going, actually, sometimes they don't alert the doctor. You need to look and say, this is your third sore throat in 6 months. Michael Douglas had throat cancer, and his original doctors thought it was just a simple cold or simple strep. And if you're using multiple telemedicine companies, nobody is seeing that you've called in multiple times. So the next reason to get checked is if this is repetitive. Don't want to scare you guys, but I think we can minimize hospitalizations if we're a little bit more proactive. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So DEI has been on the chopping block as Doge is finding grants and a lot of money that has been spent on a lot of programs and training that a lot of workers don't like to sit through. Like, I guess there was one video, there's lots of videos where they teach you how racist you are and biased. And I hear from people a lot saying, look, I want to fight racism, but I don't agree with a lot of these videos saying we're all racist or we're all and it's considered a waste of money by Doge when you're putting people through something that might not actually be helping equality. and making sure everybody has access, especially when you're making individuals feel like if you're making Latinos feel racist against black people and whites racist against Latinos, and we're all very diverse, and a lot of us are mixed race. So is that the best use of money? So Doge, from what we understand, has slashed $370 million in the last 48 hours of taxpayer money that was being spent on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion at the Department of Education. They revealed they terminated multiple grants that were training grants. One grant was reportedly funding training, according to Fox News, for teachers to engage in ongoing learning and self-reflection to confront their own biases and racism and develop asset-based anti-racist mindsets. And this was training. Even though we need these teachers to be trained on ensuring students can read, can write, and can not be watching movies and videos because there's no lesson plan made. And Doge has announced that the canceling of various streams of funding of DEI in education, including $9.7 million for UC Berkeley to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. Now, this is nice. I like Cambodians, but again, until we're well and healthy, we can't help others. And when you're having students fail and students not being proficient, we kind of have to stop and rethink where this money is coming from and what we're putting the money on. Doge announced the termination of another 89 DOE contracts totaling $881 million, which included more than $100 million in DEI grants. So we understand that Biden put a lot of money towards this. He grew DEI. And the education department is now changing that. They're ordering all 50 state education departments to remove DEI policies within 14 days or risk losing federal funding. Whereas what Biden did was if you do DEI, then you get federal funding. Biden had also threatened hospitals that if you don't have a vaccine mandate, you lose federal funding. So a bunch of nurses quit. We had a local nurse where how they quit is they left their shoes with a note in them of how many years they dedicated to the profession. And you see all these shoes by the hospital door. It was kind of ridiculous what happened in the last administration. So we don't want anybody discriminated against. We want children especially to not be sitting there told they're bad. And I understand there were studies showing how some kids would look at, there was this study where a lot of this came from, is there was a study that showed little kids would look at these cartoon pictures, and they were asked to rate which cartoon was good and which cartoon figure was bad. And in this study, it showed that the kids rated the lighter-skinned kids as good and the darker-skinned kids as bad. Now, is that because of the whole Darth Vader and the Venom character in the earlier Spider-Man? Is it that the villains, Jafar, they all have them black and darker? And so kids are now programmed through Disney or all of these that the darker uniform, the darker looked is what was it? Or was it that these kids were looking at other children who weren't them as negative? Like an Eagles fan to a Chiefs fan, as a Protestant to a Catholic, where who we are is the center of the world and everybody else is different. And so it's or inferior. And I'm not saying Protestants do that or Catholics or Jews or whatever, but they're within people's tribalism, they do that. And so, ensuring that people are aware that the world doesn't revolve around them. I mean, I understand being Jewish, we're called the chosen ones, but also God chooses all of us. Jesus was Jewish. Right? Catholics, Christians, Muslims, we're all here because God wants us to be here. So we're all chosen. And so I understand how there has to be that discussion sometimes go in, it's not girls rule and boys suck, or boys rule and girls suck. That's not nice. We don't say that. We're all here for a reason. We all have our talents. We all have our gifts and skills. We work together. But does it have to take millions and millions of dollars of tax-paying dollars? Does a child who wants to apply for a scholarship be turned down because they're a boy and not a girl? McDonald's apparently is changing a scholarship program after a lawsuit. The 40-year-old HACER program, HACER, has awarded $33 million to 17,000 students. Applicants had to have at least one Latino or Hispanic parent. Well, now the requirement is being removed. The American Alliance for Equal Rights, founded by conservative lawyer Edward Bloom, who I believe led the Supreme Court case against affirmative action, filed the lawsuit, saying non-Hispanics, including non-Hispanics with severe financial need and racial minorities like blacks, Arabs, and Native Americans, are flatly barred based on their ethnic heritage. This kind of discrimination was never lawful. And so there was a high school student with a 3.8 GPA in Arkansas was ineligible due to her ethnicity. And so McDonald's has scaled back some of their DEI, Walmart, Ford, John Deere. They've also kind of rolled back because, for DEI to happen in its current state, you have to exclude other individuals. And I told you what a dangerous path that could be, because in many cities and in many schools, the majority are Latino or Hispanic. So if you say this is only for minorities, well, now, so whites are a minority in many cities now. So we don't want to exclude. We don't want to be exclusive. We don't want to, you could really get yourself in a very, very difficult situation legally with verbiage where you're trying to say, and I understand you want to help the underserved. You want to help, and there are programs and things you could do for that. But when you try to stereotype that somebody who isn't white is underserved or at a disadvantage, you're actually kind of being racist and discriminatory in that sense. So it has to be redone. There's a way to be inclusive, show equity, have diversity. And I understand we had some horrible, horrible history in this country with racism, horrible, horrible anti-Semitism, horrible stereotypes and things being said to immigrants. I get that we have a history we never want to repeat, but it's going the other way, where students are trying to go into a room and they go, "No, you're white, get out." We're bringing back divide. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.